Alright, how's everybody doing? Soprano review. Before I begin, let me mention our sponsor, Ratchet Clothing. By now everybody knows Ratchet's a clothing company out of the UK. I'll put a link down below. You can check them out. They have clothing for men, women, and children, various prints and various styles. Alright, so before we begin, I just want to get a lot of the new subscribers up to date. The reason I'm doing this review, and I know that The Sopranos is a little dated, I have not watched any of The Sopranos. I just started watching from season 1. When the viewers found out that I haven't watched, they asked me to watch and do a review, and I kept my word. So that's why I'm doing the review. So this is season 1, episode 10. Here we go. So this episode begins with Paulie Walnuts, Pussy, and Christopher posing as delivery men. They abduct some drug dealer and they put him in his hotel room. Paulie gives him a warning to stay out of Port Newark, and he winds up shooting the guy in the head anyway. They wind up finding a lot of suitcases, so it was a big score for them. Tony Soprano has his neighbor Bruce Cusimano over. He's giving him a box of Cuban Monte Cristos for his referral to Dr. Melfi. While he's talking to his neighbor, the phone rings and it's Paulie. Paulie tells him it's done, it's the biggest fucking refrigerator you ever seen, in reference to the money. And Tony Soprano asks him what about the other thing, meaning about the victim. So Paulie replies that Juan Valdez has been separated from his donkey, meaning that they clipped the guy. So conversations like this one, talking about robberies and homicides, could lead to an indictment. It's a little unrealistic. So later that night, Tony Soprano, Paulie, and Christopher are in a hotel room with women. They're celebrating their big score. But at some point, Christopher tells them that he wants to go take Adriana out, says his goodbyes, and he leaves. He takes Adriana out to dinner, to a theater, to watch a musical. And at some point later on in the night, they go to a fast food restaurant. While they're in the restaurant, Christopher makes a couple of racist remarks. They were the only white people in the restaurant. Most likely he would have got lumped up. One of the customers in the restaurant is a guy by the name of Massive Genius. He's a famous rapper. At first, Christopher and him exchange some words, and then the guy sends a couple of guys from his entourage over to Christopher to invite him to a private party. Christopher does take Adriana and shows up at the guy's house for the party. This guy turns around and tells Christopher that he needs a favor from him. He needs to set up an appointment with Hesh. Hesh used to represent the guy's deceased cousin, who was a musical artist, and Hesh never split the royalties with the guy's family. So Christopher does set up the meeting. It takes place at Hesh's farmhouse. Hesh has Tony Soprano and his crew with him. Massive Genius comes with a couple of guys as well. So while Hesh and the rappers talking, Christopher blurts out that Hesh needs to do what is right. So as I wrote, as an associate, Christopher's lucky to be even invited to the sit down, let alone that he winds up making a comment. What was surprising to me was that Hesh was the one to reprimand him. That reprimand should have came from either Tony Soprano or one of the guys in his crew. Ultimately, Massive Genius thinks that Hesh should pay $400,000 to his cousin's mother, and he says he's going to think about it. After hearing about the Soprano crew's involvement in the music industry, Adriana suggests to Christopher that they both should get involved in music producing. She offers to introduce him to a band called Visiting Day, and the lead singer was an ex-boyfriend of hers. Christopher ultimately winds up going to see the group, and he offers to help produce them. So things quickly go wrong with Christopher and the group when the lead singer one day refuses to finish out the day in the studio. Christopher winds up smashing the guy over the head with a guitar, as I wrote in the blog, like El Kabam. So Christopher wants to get this guy Massive Genius involved in the group. Him and Adriana take the rapper to watch the group one night. So it's obvious that the rapper's more interested in Adriana than the group, and this is definitely not lost on Christopher. Eventually he lets Hesh listen to a demo from Visiting Day. Hesh listens to it and tells him that the group is garbage. He breaks the news to Adriana that the group is not going anywhere, and also that Massive Genius' intention was only to get in her pants. She becomes very defensive and she storms out. So Tony Soprano's neighbor, Bruce Cusimano, invites him out for a day of golf with him and his friends at a country club. All was going well until one of the guys started asking Tony Soprano some questions. One of the questions he asked him was, how real was the Godfather? So Tony Soprano seemed a little confused by it. He said, what do you mean real? And the guy responded, authentic or not? Obviously Tony Soprano was insulted. He said, I don't know, how should I know? So as I wrote, take an insult to a higher level, the guy then asked him, I want to know if you really had to cut your finger taking an oath. I wrote that Tony Soprano kept his composure instead of hitting him with a 9-iron, and I wasn't trying to be funny. I think that this scene was lost on most people, and I'll explain. Tony Soprano can't react to this guy because then he's admitting who he is. Also, these are civilians that he's golfing with, and they don't know any better, so he can't react to them. So the last question this guy has for him is, did you ever meet John Gotti? And he tells the guy an elaborate story that has to do with John Gotti, an ice cream truck, and a bungalow bar. Later, while in therapy with Dr. Melfi, Tony Soprano relates the story to her and compares to how he felt at the golf course to years ago when he and his friends used to mistreat a guy from his neighborhood. Fully aware that this guy Cusimano is not Tony Soprano's friend, Dr. Melfi says to him, "You thought Cusimano was your friend." And comprehending, Tony Soprano answered her and says, "You live and you learn." So he understood this guy's not a friend of his. So ultimately, after giving it consideration and probably going over it with Tony Soprano, Hesh gets in touch with this massive genius and tells him that he's not going to pay the royalty money. The rapper begins to threaten Hesh over the phone. He's on speakerphone. Tony Soprano hears it and he tells the guy to calm down. The rapper tells Hesh that he's going to be hearing from his lawyers, so he's going to sue him for the money. So in the last scene, Tony Soprano decides to play a joke on his neighbor Cusimano. He takes a box, fills it with sand, and wraps it up like a package. He walks out into his yard and goes over to the fence and calls his neighbor over. Trying to be secretive, he tells the guy that he wants him to hold on to this package for a while. The guy looks a little unsure, but he takes the package from him. Next, he asks if he found out about him joining their golf club, and the guy turns around and says he's sorry, the memberships are closed. The neighbor and the friends at the golf club never intended to have Tony as a member with them. But Tony Soprano really don't care because he's also a member of a club that they'll never be allowed to get into. So in the final scene, the Cusimanos are in their kitchen just staring at that box, wondering what's inside of it. So I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm also going to put a link for my blog down below as well. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their night. Stay healthy, drink your water, take your vitamins. Until the next time, ciao for now.